Alright guys, I'm going to show you my fiberglass process. First off, on your mats, on your fiberglass matting, you don't want cut sheets. You don't want something with a straight edge on it. Try to find one of them here. So this has got a pretty decently straight edge on it. This is the edge of the actual mat itself. Essentially, you don't want to cut, you just want to grab your sheets and just pull them apart. You want the frays on the edges of your mat, so when you overlap these two together, they bond with the edges. So if you've got cut edges, those cut edges can't bond very well and you'll have a weak point right here. So these edges, I'll save these and I'll actually use them to help make a little bit cleaner edge on this. Even though I'm going to cut it, but it just makes a cleaner edge. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but basically I'm just going to use that part as the edge, and then I'll come in and overlap this one here, and I've got all these set up already pulled, and I'll just keep going through and just overlap all your pieces just like this. I usually put maybe about an inch overlap on each of these pieces, just so I make sure I have enough structure. But you can see I got an edge there, so I'm probably going to move that up there. But you keep overlapping all these pieces together, and I'll show you. Let me mix my resin up here. Tell you what I'm going to leave. I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Now, I don't have an exact science to mixing this together. I've done it enough to where I can get the amount of time that I have to work with this stuff down to about 7-8 minutes or 10 minutes maybe. If it starts to gel, I still keep using it all the way until it's completely hardened. So from the time this starts to gel up on you as you're using it, that's the point when you know it's go time to hurry up and finish what you have left in there. Okay. Alright, now we're going to mix this up real good. Scraping the sides of the container, scraping the bottom. You want it 100% mixed. And then we're using a 2-inch chip brush to apply this. Really nothing complicated about this process. It can be messy. You can get this all over yourself, but nothing complicated. To the side. Alright, got my chip brush in here. So now I'm just going to take it and we're going to start pushing it in to the fiberglass. I'm going to take a big glob of it, push it in, and you're going to push it in until the white color of the fiberglass turns dark. And you can see when there's still air in it and when the air is gone. So I'm putting pretty good pressure down on it as I'm patting this down. And just keep moving. Sometimes I'll dump a spot, come back and then pat it in. Now if you need to, if the patch is lifting on you, lift it up, put some fiberglass underneath or a resin underneath, and then pat it down. It'll stick like glue. Now I'm up against the fact that this panel is not completely solid and wants to wiggle around on me. So make sure we get all the air pockets out of here that we possibly can. Making sure I hit these edges real good. These will be the weakest points. Some resin. Just kind of play around with it. The more you do this, the more you get used to it. Oh, they're out of that edge. But you can see white dots through there. That's all air pockets. Push them out. All right, let's see. We'll lay in our next piece here. I'm going to overlap my cut edge. Now you got to keep in mind this resin's a ticking time bomb. So you have to go as quickly as you can, but making sure you do it right and get all the air out. There we go. Come up here. Once that resin bleeds through that fiberglass mat and sticks to the surface below, you don't have to hold it anymore. It'll stick right there on its own. Okay. Now I'm leaving these edges open so I can see where I've been and what I still need to do. So in case this resin hardens up and I gotta mix a new batch, I can easily see where I left off. This area there. I don't know if you can see, but this area is dark. The resin's fully absorbed into that mat. That white will disappear, and then you know you've got all the air out of it. Back here. There's one on there. And you can't really overlap too much. Just gives you more structure. So there's no perfect way to do this. Let's just get the layers in, make sure they overlap, and get the air out. That's your goal. And yes, I'm not wearing a mask. I have a fan blowing on me, and it's ventilated in here. Don't have any issues. But we're just going through, laying patches, laying resin. Pockets here. Pressing pretty hard in some spots. Make sure the air's out. And you see I'm applying a little resin before I put this patch down, so it'll help it stick. Now the speed method is to take and just dump this on this panel and then work it in. So if you've got the resin gelling up on you, that's going to be your speed method. Just start dumping and throwing patches and dumping it on there. Get all this air out if I can. Go. This pocket in here. And here's where it starts to get messy. Couldn't show you this method when I was up in the trunk. It's hard to film that, but now that I got this on a table, I figure I'd show you how I do this. I've seen a bunch of people do it different ways. I've seen some people lay a whole entire mat across this and then try to resin the whole mat at one time. It works. The only thing I didn't like about it was when it was done, there was a boatload of air pockets in that matting. So I was not a fan of doing one big mat at one time. These little panels make it easy. You can work in small areas. Make sure I get all the air out. This is my third layer on this shell. We're going to do at least one more layer of fiberglass, and then once that dries, I'll show you guys how I check the structure on it. And as you can see it's starting to gel up on me. So now it's go time. So start slapping some panels. Yeah, and let's just start dumping. I'll show you, if I get this video to go long enough, I'll show you a quick tip that I use to help this resin cure faster. There we go. Now let's get our air out. And again, I am pressing pretty hard on this to smash the air out, push the resin down into the matting. And don't be afraid, if it will move around on you as you're doing this, you can scoot it back into place. It's not the end of the world. And all these little fibers sticking up all over, just pat those back down. And a bunch of air down here. Okay. Almost done with this batch. This does take time, it's tedious, but if you do this right, your box will be strong, strong, strong. The previous box I built has a 12-inch, 1200 watt subwoofer in it, and it's quite a bit smaller than this box. And I've put that box through its paces. I've jumped the amps up on that speaker quite a bit, quite a few times, and I've got no cracking, no splitting, no issues out of that box. It is super strong, super duper strong. Got some air in here, guys. So now my resin batch is done. I'm empty for that. So now, just before this fully starts to set up, I'm just going to go back over everything I just did. Make sure all the little fiber strands that are sticking up are pressed down into the resin. As you can see, my edges are still, there's no resin on these edges, so I know exactly where I left off. Because although I don't mind doing too much fiberglass, but at the same time, this stuff isn't really super cheap, so I'd rather not waste fiberglass if I don't have to. Alright guys, let me make sure I got this here. I'm going to take my gloves off. I'm going to grab my phone or camera, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to get you up close here and show you. These air pockets out of here. Just finding more air pockets just to get out and pop. The less air pockets you have, the stronger the structure will be. There we go. Some up in here. Push it down. Alright guys, that should do it for now. Let me take these gloves off. I'll grab the camera. Okay, so you can clearly see there's where I stopped, so I know exactly where to take over on my next batch of resin. But pretty much as simple now. I just finished, this batch is done. I'm going to grab a new cup and mix a new batch up, and then just pick up where I left off. So probably one 12-ounce batch of resin did half, maybe a little under half of this shell. Didn't take much fiberglass, but that's all there is to it. It's nothing complicated. Just take your time, make sure all the air pockets are out, and you can clearly see, you know, when the matting is white versus when it's dark and you've got air in it, you can see that. So, but I'll show you the next step. I'm going to finish the other half of this shell with this third layer, and we'll come back.